J.W. Corbett Wildlife Management Area, a boggy landmass adjacent to Florida's Lake Okeechobee and nearby Palm Beach, is a place that retains a remarkably authentic primitive marsh forest and habitation. Alligators are abundant along the trails, as are a collection of birds and floral displays that give an air of real subtropical ambiance. Stay clear of slumbering alligators, but tramp amongst a pleasurable variety of sunning, munching, and flirting waterfowl. One of the largest freshwater lakes in the U.S. is Florida's Lake Okeechobee, once a hard-to-access wilderness area in the heart of south-central Florida. Pioneers didn't really penetrate and settle the marshy land here until the beginning of the 20th century. Today, the landscape hosts a sprawling, heavily populated collection of communities of seasonal commuters and tourists from the northern states, engaged in retirement, hunting, and fishing for largemouth bass and perch, among other lakeside activities. The lake also reportedly has more alligators residing within than any other Florida lake, estimated 30,000 by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. The Seminole Battle of Lake Okeechobee was fought on Christmas Day, 1837, with about 800 troops under the command of Colonel Zachary Taylor. The 1st, 4th, and 6th Infantry Regiments, plus 132 Missouri volunteers, joined the fight. Approximately 400 to 500 warriors, led by Billy Bowlegs, Coquechee, or Wildcat, Arpeeka, or Sam Jones, and Alligator, also known as Halpater Tustanugi, claimed to have beaten back the invaders. But Colonel Taylor was promoted to Brigadier General afterward and assumed the nickname Old Rough and Ready. He was rough and made himself ready to become the 12th President of the United States. This second Seminole War conflict claimed 26 U.S. soldiers' lives, including the majority of Taylor's officers and NCOs, with about 112 wounded, against reportedly 11 Seminoles killed and 14 wounded. The natives' guerrilla-style warfare in the muck of Florida's interior made reckoning who won or lost hard to determine. Decades later, following the Civil War, increasing numbers of pioneers arrived in the region. Seminole jargon included the words Okie, meaning big, and Chubee, meaning water. The lake is 730 square miles, but is shallow, with an average depth of only 9 feet. It straddles 5 counties and is fed by the Kissimmee River. The Okeechobee settlement dates from October 1896, when Peter Rollerson and his wife moved from Basinger to the wilderness along Taylor Creek. Owning at first only a Knox cart and a horse-drawn buggy, they built a log home and barn and began farming and raising cattle. I arrived at the lakeside late in the afternoon. It apparently was peak time for fishing by local residents and tourists, and also hordes of birds. An alligator, I recollect, maneuvered almost invisibly in the nearby shadows. From Okeechobee, water formerly flowed or seeped southward into Paheoki, a native word which translates into, quote, grassy waters. In other words, the Everglades. The Everglades of Florida, including the Big Cypress Wildlife Area, is the vast wilderness region east of the Mississippi that retains some of the pioneering explorer fascination with the ambiance of the natural and untamed southeastern U.S. Its sawgrass plains and clumps of close-packed trees stretch from central Florida south and west to the very shores of the Gulf of Mexico. For travelers across the area in the 19th century, few humans, except for an occasional encounter with a lone Seminole native, would be encountered. Rather than trying to describe the Everglades mystique of Florida myself, I quote extensively from an adventurer plying the bottomlands more than a century ago. His experience, published in the late 1890s, is far more timely and accurate than anything I myself can compose. As is evident, Hugh Losat, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, also had some strong opinions regarding the white man and Native American misadventures in Florida.
Everyone has heard of the Everglades, but I think that the general impression of what constitutes the Everglades is absolutely erroneous. You will probably be told that it is a vast tract of swamp in Florida into which the Indians were driven during the Seminole War and where Uncle Sam was unable to follow them. It will be my endeavor to show, as this account of my last winter's expedition progresses, that the word swamp, as we understand it, has no application whatever to the Everglades. That it is a country of pure water, that this water is moving in one direction or another, depending on the natural topography of the country. That the air is wholesome, pure, and free from disease germs. That near the coast and the mangroves, the mosquitoes thrive. But deep in the Everglades, in the wintertime at least, you can sleep comfortably without a net. No stagnant pools exist for the larvae to thrive in. The winds blow gently over this almost level expanse most of the time from the southeast, though occasionally they come from the Gulf, and still more rarely sweep down from due north, when the thermometer drops gradually to about 50 degrees. During the last cold winter, a few years ago, the central and northern part of the state was made desolate, and thousands of people were financially ruined by the terrible blow given to the orange culture. The northern half of Lake Okeechobee was covered with ice, and the coconut trees were stripped of their leaves at Palm Beach, which is about their northern limit. On Biscayne Bay, however, the cold did no damage. Northers of such low temperature, fortunately, lose most of their cold before reaching South Florida, and the usual daily temperature of the Everglades in the winter is from 70 degrees to 80 degrees. The air has plenty of life in it at all times and is full of what people call ozone. Even the heat of 80 degrees seems about the same as 70 degrees in our midsummer. Since returning home, I have frequently been asked, did you not suffer from fever? Were you not made ill by your exposure to that terrible malaria swamp? I reply, during the entire winter, I did not have a single ache or pain, with the exception of an accident which befell me on the Florida reefs, in which the bone of my nose was half cut through. The Indians bear witness to the healthfulness of this region. The men have fine, stalwart figures, the women are strong and in many instances beautiful, the children are fat and chubby. They suffer less from the diseases that Indians are apt to have, and are content in their simple wild life, so long as the, quote, lying white man lets them alone in the one little spot which they have hoped might ever be inaccessible to him. Over these watery wastes the Seminole still paddles his cypress dugout canoe, hunts the deer and the otter, and observes the rites and ceremonies of his tribe, unmixed with and uncontaminated by the whites. The occasional visits which he makes to the trading stations do him no good, as there he finds the, quote, white man's fire water, which he is tempted to imbibe too freely by those who think themselves of a superior race, but who in reality are far inferior to the, quote, untutored Indian in every moral trait.
Even more remote areas of southwest Florida's sawgrass plains merge with inlets of the Gulf of Mexico. A town named Everglades City, adjacent to Chokoloskee Island and Bay, appeared during the early 20th century, drawing on a small sugarcane trade and abundant fishing prospects. The marine life in the area includes bottlenose dolphins in some abundance. However, in the 1970s and 1980s, a notorious trade in, quote, square grouper, a euphemism for bales of marijuana, marked the area and mangroves of the nearby 10,000 islands. Planes and boats parked the stuff for pickup and delivery by accommodating locals across the U.S. Long before, the town drew regular visits from an Edgar Watson, a pioneer of supposed ill repute who lived and farmed on nearby Chatham Island. Ed Watson was suspected by the locals of some murders in the area, so one day in 1910, armed citizens assembled at Smallwood's store, still there in the town, and riddled him with bullets when he came to the store by boat. This story is in a book written by Peter Matheson in 1990 called Killing Mr. Watson. Hurricanes did their part to denude Everglades City of some of its historical structures and flora. However, the quaint byway along the Tamiami Trail Road is a kind of revelation of human resilience, an encounter with still pioneering folks, about 500, managing a town tucked among the folds of cypress trees and chunks of land scattered in the eastern Gulf.